specifically though, what does cultivating champions mean? So that's the structure, I'm assuming, that you had to set up in order to journey along the path of cultivating champions. But I think I know what you mean, but it doesn't matter what I think. I want to know what you mean.
Sure. So effectively, again, it's going back to my wholesaling roots. So when you're speaking to an advisor, as a wholesaler, you're really just, for lack of better, and I don't want to say anything negative about anybody, but most of these things are the same thing, just with a different bow on top, right? So it's all relative value for the most part. It's, do you want my Canadian equity fund, or are you going to buy the guys next door, right? You're going to buy one of them. So which one are you going to buy? So really, it's all about developing that deep relationship and getting that champion or that individual, whoever it may be, and they come from different walks of life. My primary are ultimately CPAs, so accountants across North America, but not exclusively. That's just my bread and butter. But getting those types of people to engage back in you in effectively solving a problem for them.
Yeah.
I knew it was getting
immediate value. Most of us are trained to. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just when the magic sauce
so
is coming, you pulled your cable out, and you're like, I'm not telling everybody this stuff. Here's the secret stuff I put in.
Yeah, see, I can't.
Yeah, and then of course all the clients show up at the door. That's how you do it. Now keep going. So you're at the point you were dealing with CPAs, so niching a bit, and then adding value or solving problems.
Yes,
that's where you got to cut out. So keep going.
Definitely. So you add immediate value to somebody, and most of us are, unfortunately, in our training taught to say, look, I want to ask for the business immediately, right? And I actually think that's the wrong way to do it. So what I like to do is I like to give first, unselfishly, right? How can I help you do your job better? So whether that be maybe even teaching some of them how to sell themselves, right? Maybe even just re-articulating the conversation, or at minimum, fixing a specific problem. So because of the cross-border nature of what I do, I can do stuff that other people can't, and they've historically had this problem. It's just a drag in their books. Any client that happens to reside in Canada that has a W-9 has this problem, and so I'm uniquely positioned to fix that specific problem. So it's almost like a light bulb moment for them. It's like, oh, you can do that. Awesome. Tell me more.
I love that. Position yourself to do something that other people can't, or that very few can. I mean, that is, I think if I think about a lot of the folks that try a niche market, they're not thinking in that way, right? They're not thinking about having a very direct and measurable point of difference that is, whether it's a regulatory point of difference. I'm assuming because you can deal on both sides of the border for an individual client, and you're familiar with the forms that they may be facing, the troubles that may be facing, you can have a deeper, more meaningful conversation. And then you can actually bring solutions to bear from both sides of the border. Is that the leap, or?
100%. Yeah. So what I mean by we can do things that others can't, for example, Americans that move to Canada, unfortunately, securities laws in both countries are residency based, but the United States is one of 3 countries on the planet that have a global taxation or a global reporting requirement for citizens, or what we call US persons. So you can be a green card holder or a citizen. So because of that, there's actually a conflict. Is that my best analogy is, imagine a retirement account like a cement pole in each country, okay? And your non-retirement accounts are like luggage. They have to go on the plane with you to country jurisdiction. But those cement poles are still fixated in the ground in that country. So you earned that while you were legally a resident. You're entitled to keep it. You just need to be with an advisor and an institution that's licensed to keep you. And unfortunately, there's very few that have that. So I happen to be one of the handful of people in North America that can fix that problem. So if you have that, and unfortunately, a lot of the American institutions, the moment that person moves over the border, they send them this Dear John letter that says you have 60 or 90 days, get out, and or here's a check, and you can pay the tax. So you're networking with the other professionals that they would engage with, making sure that they know if they encountered this problem, that you're there to help them service their client, provide any sort of transitionary period, operate with both sides. You're doing 2 tax returns in this case, and in almost all cases. So you've got to liaise with 2 different tax professionals with 2 different domains of rules and knowledge. And so that's you're doing what other people can't do. Is 100%.
And look, from a broader perspective, I think, you've found a niche. There are many niches that people listening that want to grow their business can find. I remember when I spoke about my niche at the time, which was I needed people that could read what I wrote, which was a lot of stuff and long form. And the vast majority of people don't have time, nor do they care, except for one unique group that spends most of their day reading, and those were lawyers, right? Attorneys in the U.S. And so I spent my time like contacting them and sending them long form content that they would read from soup to nuts and then buy in, right? That was my niche. Like that, there's so many areas that individuals can try to attack. And people would look at me and say, okay, I'm going to do that. And they tried to do the same thing I did. But because of the way I marketed and really pushed my brand out at the time, they weren't as successful as I was, right? And similarly, I know a handful of advisors that do what you do, but have not even come close to the growth that you have. Because I think that going back to the sponge example, and I'd like you to expand on how you were able to do this, you market yourself better. I think one of the things that I wrote on the headlines of this podcast, YouTube live show, was that how do you brand yourself as your unique self, right? You seem to me like really genuine.